Today, officers were called out to the Steak and Shake on 161 on a report of a robbery in progress at 9:07 this morning. When officers were called out, they were called out because a gentleman was inside of the business for roughly an hour prior to the robbery attempt. The subject then went to the register and demanded cash from the employee, at which time there was a discussion between the employee and the suspect, and he continued to demand money, at which time he was unsuccessful at retrieving the money. So he left the business, and when he left the business, he fired off a round from a firearm that he was possessing. He then left the business after firing one round. He then, as you can see behind me, attempted a carjacking on a city employee in a city vehicle right here. So after he was unsuccessful in that carjacking, he then fled that scene and he went to a location where he changed his clothes. After he changed his clothes, officers immediately got to the scene, recognized the suspect. He still had a firearm, at which time the officers engaged the suspect with the firearm. One officer did fire several shots, knocking the suspect down, and they were able to take him into custody. We also retrieved the weapon and some other items that were inside of the business that the suspect had at that time. We can also say he was transported to a local hospital in critical condition. I'm not sure of his status as of right now, but I will find that out. So no injuries to the officers who responded to the scene, and all are safe and accounted for as of right now, so I'll start with any questions.
Do you know anything about this man, a criminal history, what may have been going on led up to this?
We don't. We're still working through that, but one thing we were told, and again, this is just the beginning of this, but we believe that this gentleman may have been involved in a previous robbery, not necessarily today, but a previous robbery attempt in the area, so we're still working to confirm that.
At that Steak and Shake or at a different location?
Still working through that, so not exactly sure of the location, but we were given very good information that he was part of a similar robbery in the past.
Sergeant, tell us about the city worker. What was the city worker doing here, and what is his or her status right now?
They are okay. They were on their break, as they're allowed to have, and they're in very good spirits right now. Obviously, they are with our criminal investigative response team, who will be reviewing everything that happened, and
Did they have to fight the guy off?
Still working through those initial details. It's too early to really discuss that. He is a very key witness in this situation, so at this time, the best thing I can tell you that is he is okay, and you know, obviously the vehicle is okay as well.
Do we know whether the suspect displayed the firearm when he confronted these guys?
Say again?
Did the suspect display his firearm when he confronted the city employees?
Still working through those details, not exactly sure, but we do know that he had the firearm with him at that time.
You mentioned the officer fired, or the suspect, fired a shot at the Steak and Shake. Was that inside or outside the business, and was it directed at anyone?
It was definitely outside of the business. We're not sure at this time if it was directed at anyone. We're still working through that part of the scene, but there was at least one shot that he fired with the gun he was possessing.
So we have a lot of crime scene tape here. Can you kind of show us or point to us? Obviously, we know it started at the Steak and Shake, but
Sure.
Where was the suspect actually shot, and where did the police officers shoot at?
Sure. So because we're still in the initial stages, I'll just give you as best I can right now. So we know the Steak and Shake is located just to the west of us. Responding officers pulled up, we'll say, in the 161 service road, the service road that is just south of 161, and located the suspect just a little bit north of this location. So it's kind of difficult to see, but I'll kind of stand off here. You see this business with the red paint. There was they confronted each other between that building and the business next to it, roughly.
But outside, not inside that building.
Correct, outside.
We had heard the suspect had jumped that fence over there. Is that accurate? Do you know if that's the case?
We believe that he jumped the fence. We're working to verify if that is accurate or not, but at this time, we're not 100% sure on that.
So the shots were fired over there by that business. That's what that red tape on that side of the scene is.
By the officer, yes.
Do you know how many officers shot?
At this time, just one officer.
Where did he go to change clothes?
He went behind one of these buildings. We're not at liberty to discuss which building yet, but he did go behind a building to take cover to change his clothes.
And just to be clear, there's only one person in the city vehicle?
Yes.
Super busy area. Everyone's getting ready to go to work, and you've got a couple of daycares here. Talk about this. This could have been very scary. It was scary.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go out in the middle of the day on a Friday, people are trying to get to their weekend. You know, obviously this particular city worker was just trying to get some lunch and enjoy himself, working hard. So the last thing that's ever going through your mind is that, you know, someone's going to try to carjack you with a gun, that you could possibly lose your life over something as simple as someone going through whatever this suspect was going through, that he was willing to go to those limits to hurt someone. So I would tell everyone this is very rare, this type of robbery attempt and then carjacking attempt, not only for this area but in the city of Columbus in general. But the officers did an outstanding job communicating. You know, this could have been a very deadly situation, not only for the suspect, but for the officers. You know, we had multiple officers responding to this location where they were coming in all different directions. So they did a great job of communicating. And I can't stress enough that people don't realize how difficult this job can be, and the amount of training that we go through and the amount of stress that it puts on your body. Okay, we qualify with our weapons multiple times a year. For an agency our size, that's very rare. You know, we take discharging a weapon very serious. You know, anytime someone can lose their life, that's something we pride ourselves on having the discipline to make sure that if we do have to pull that trigger, the only person that's getting hit is the suspect.
So to be clear, he had been hanging around inside the restaurant for a period of time.
That's correct, a substantial amount of time.
Did they serve breakfast, do you know? I mean, is that why?
You know, I am a frequent visitor of Steak and Shake personally, so they serve breakfast there as well as lunch 24 hours a day.
I have a really bizarre question. In the parking lot of that Steak and Shake, there's a vehicle that has some undergarments on it. Do you have any idea what that has connected to this, if anything at all? They were outside the vehicle in a trunk. It just seemed kind of odd.
Yeah, if there were garments left at the scene and it's still being held, that could possibly be part of this investigation.
Okay, did he change clothes in the parking lot of the Steak and Shake in a vehicle that was there? There's a vehicle involved.
I mean, that is possible. Again, we're still working through the initial parts of that, but one thing that I do know is he changed some portions of his clothing behind a building.
I mean, how quickly did this all unfold? I mean, we're talking 9:07 was when that initial robbery call came in.
Sure.
How quickly did all of this?
It was very, very, very quick. At 9:07 was the initial call. At 9:12, we received calls that the suspect had fired a shot, and within minutes after that, we received the additional call that the officer located the suspect and fired a shot at him.
Was it a handgun or a long gun that he had?
It was a rifle.
Do you know, obviously with the fact that, this may be too early to ask this, but if you have someone who has an attempted robbery, there's a confrontation at the Steak and Shake, and they have the forethought to have a change of clothes, have you had any indication, or had you found anything at all that indicates there were other things planned by this gentleman after the robbery before he was apprehended by police? The fact that he changed his clothes to try to conceal his identity?
Nothing that we can prove at this point, but it does speak to a larger point that you bring up, that the fact that he had a weapon, he had a change of clothes, he even attempted to carjack someone after a robbery. You know, he had clear intentions that he had thought out, and fortunately for us and the citizens, his plan was unsuccessful and everyone is safe. But the fact that he even had the foresight to have a change of clothes and have a weapon, sit in the business for a substantial period of time, like you just said, and still plan this attack is something that is very unusual.
Did he fire any shots at the officers?
At this time, we're not sure of that. We'll find that out through the course of the CERT investigation.
Any indication that this person was drinking or drugging?
None at this time that we know of.
So he did not have that rifle inside the Steak and Shake with him the initial time?
No, I'm sorry, let me clear that and be clear. The suspect possessed a handgun. The officer used his division-issued rifle to fight the suspect.
And there was talk about the drive-through, but so that was not accurate, correct? This didn't take place at the drive-through.
That's correct.
So talk to us about next steps. What happens now for people that kind of want to understand the police process?
Sure. So anytime we have a police-involved situation where an officer discharges a firearm, as you can see, it's a very large scene that it takes up a huge amount of resources, but we do that because it's very important that we are accurate and we get everything correct. The public deserves accountability from us. Oftentimes people want to know why, and people want to know why our investigations take so long. Well, they take so long because we want to make sure we're doing it fairly and thoroughly. Our investigative team have hundreds of years of police experience. That's the reason why they're on the investigative team. So they'll be out here collecting evidence, talking to witnesses, taking photographs, doing all the necessary steps before we come to any conclusions. We never rush to judgment in these situations. But I can safely say in this particular situation, because of the actions of the officers doing such an outstanding job, that everyone is safe. And we should hopefully have the scene cleared up here in the next couple of hours. But again, we don't rush it for, a business or for any other reason because it's raining. These officers are standing out here in the rain. Some of them don't even have jackets because they were in such a rush to respond to the officer that was in trouble that he had to discharge his firearm. And they're still out here working without any cover from the elements. So that's where we are.
Can you clarify a little bit about what this worker does for the city?
I'm actually not sure at this time, but I can find that out for you.
And how many employees were in the Steak and Shake?
There were several. I don't know the approximate amount, but they were gearing up for lunchtime, and Friday is one of their busier days, so they had a decent amount of employees working.
You give us an update later on today?
In terms of
just an update.
Names and things
His
like
name.
that.
A couple hours or whatever.
we will try to get that information to you as soon as we can, yes.
All right, thanks, Sarge.
Thank you.